everyone, my name is Amanda Chafin and I work at the Lane Community Technology Center in Hamilton, Ohio. Today I'm going to show you how to design custom animal-themed pendants with a free program called Inkscape and then cut and etch them on our Glowforge laser cutter. Inkscape is free software that you can download and install now from inkscape.org. So just go ahead and open up your favorite browser, type in inkscape.org, go to downloads, current version, and you can download it for Windows, Mac, Linux. Just make sure that you use whatever operating system that your computer has. That's the one you download. It defaults to the SVG file format, which stands for Scalable Vector Graphic. The smooth, scalable quality of this format is just perfect for cutting and etching with our laser, so that's why we're using this today. Now here we are in Inkscape. Yours might look a little different if it is the first time you're using it. Mine has still remembered a few settings, a few menus that I had open last time. First thing you're going to do is you're going to go to File and Save As. So File, Save As. And you're going to save yours as whatever you want. I'm going to save mine as Animals SVG. I'm going to save mine to my desktop. You can save it wherever you want, name it whatever you want. Just make sure it has that SVG file format, okay? And now we're going to open up our document properties. So we're going to go over to File and then Document Properties. And what that does is it opens up this Document Properties menu over here. And we're going to make a couple of changes. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to go change our units to inches. I'm an American, I think in inches, so I want to work in inches. If you want to work in millimeters or something else, you are welcome to do so. I'm going to change mine to a height and a width, both of 12 inches. And the reason I'm doing that is because I'm working with a 12 by 12 board, and I want my workspace to resemble my material as much as possible. On this menu, the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to our little snap tab. That's right here. What snapping does is if it's on, it'll snap when you place an object. It'll snap it to the edge of the nearest object, or it'll snap it to the grid if you're working with a grid. Now, I don't want to do that when I'm drafting. I kind of find it a little too restrictive. So I'm going to turn them all off by clicking this snap only when closer than on each of them. And then I'm going to drag all of these down to the bottom, all these bars. Okay, when that's done, what you're going to do is you're just going to go up to your Document Properties tab and hit this little X to close it. Good job, everyone. Once your document is set up, go ahead and open your browser again, like I've done here, and go to freepatternsarea.com. So just in your browser, freepatternsarea.com, and we're going to search for some nice patterns that we can use as templates for our pendants. So I'm going to go ahead and type jewelry here in the internal search bar, the one for the website, not the search bar at the top. So I'm just going to type jewelry and hit enter. And right away, right from the top, I see some pendant shapes that I think I would really like. So I am going to go ahead and click on those. These kinds of websites can be really tricky with all these different download buttons and you're not sure what to download. That's totally fine. Don't hit any of them. Really, don't. I'm going to give you a much better way to do this. Right click and choose Save As or Save Image As. So that's what we're going to do now. We're going to right click it, choose Save Image As. And now we are going to save this to our downloads, okay? So we're saving it right now to downloads. Okay, we also want animals. So again, I'm going to search for animals. Right away at the top, I found one that I think will really work well. So I'm going to click it. And then again, I'm going to right click it, save image as, and save it as downloads. Now, one thing I do want to show you is if you scroll down, you can see that this work is licensed under Creative Commons Attribution 4.0 International License. So what does that mean? Well, if you go to creativecommons.org, you can actually look up what that license means. It's an attribution license. It means you're free to share it and to adapt it, but there are some conditions. You have to provide proper attribution. So you have to say, I didn't make this, someone else made this. In this case, I just told you, hey, this is from this Free Patterns Area website. This is where I got it. I've attributed it to its creator, so I'm good there. And then there are no additional restrictions. So whenever you are downloading things from the internet to use with your own work, make sure you're allowed. You don't want to inadvertently steal someone's work. So that's kind of what you're looking for. And I always recommend when you're searching for images, search for Creative Commons and then the image that you want. That way you're more likely to pop up with search results that you are allowed to use. Okay, so now we're going to go back into our little document here in Inkscape, and now that we've downloaded some files and we've made sure that we are allowed to use them, what we're going to do is we are going to go to File and Import. Once we do that, we're just going to open from our downloads. First, we're going to open our earring shapes, and you're going to see this little menu here. You just want to choose Smooth and then hit OK. To be able to work with this image, especially to be able to cut out one of these images, we're going to need to turn it into a path. So we're just going to go Path, Trace Bitmap. It's going to open up our Trace Bitmap menu. We're going to hit Update so we can kind of see what this looks like and how much detail we have or want. So it looks a little less detailed than I'd like, so I think I'm going to change it a little bit. So I'm going to do that by adjusting my brightness threshold up. When I hit Update, I can see that it's a little darker. Let's see what happens if I go up to 0.8. I think I like 0.85 the best, so I'm going to stick with that, and I'm going to hit Apply. So once I do that, we're not quite done yet. We need to click on this and drag it off. We're going to delete our old one, because you can see our old one here, it doesn't have that negative space that's solid. Whereas in our new one, it does have the negative space, and that's what we're looking for. So now we're going to delete our old one. And I'm just going to put this off to the side, over here out of my way. I will use it a little later. We're going to repeat that process for the animals. So I'm going to go to File, Import. We can open the animal stencil, hit Smooth, OK, Path, Trace Bitmap, Update. I'm going to adjust the brightness, hit Apply, drag my new one away, delete my old one, and I'm going to put this off to the side. So let's start with a zebra pendant. One of the most common questions that I get from patrons is, Amanda, how do I erase or isolate something in Inkscape? It's kind of counterintuitive, and I'm going to teach you that now. So I'm going to click on my animals now, and I'm going to go to Edit and Duplicate. Now I'm going to pull that over, and I just want to isolate my zebra. To do that, again, kind of counterintuitive. We can go ahead and close our Trace Bitmap. I'm going to grab my rectangle tool, and I'm going to make a rectangle here, everything above my zebra. And then I'm going to open this Fill and Stroke menu, or this paintbrush menu. It looks like a little paintbrush, okay? And in the Fill tab, I'm going to hit this button. It says Flat Color, and it's going to fill that in. And on the Stroke tab, I'm going to hit that X, so there's not going to be a stroke. I'm also going to click on this and turn this into a path. I'm going to Path, Object to Path. So now I'm going to click my rectangle. I'm going to hold down Shift, and I'm going to click my animals, and I'm going to choose Path and Difference. And see how that erased everything above the zebra? We're going to do the same thing for everything next to the zebra. So I'm going to make my little rectangle, hold down Shift, click my zebra, and then I'm going to go with Path and Difference. Now I've isolated my zebra, and I think I want him to face the other way, so I'm going to flip him. That's what these buttons up here do. So I'm just going to flip him so he's facing that way. Now it's time to actually make the pendant. So I'm going to grab the circle tool, and I'm going to make a pendant, and I think size-wise, so I'm going to hit my selection tool up here, and I'm going to change this to inches, because remember, as we already found out, I like to think in inches. So I'm going to change it to about 2 inches high, and about, maybe let's try 1. No, let's try 1.5. I think that looks like a pretty good size for a pendant. Okay, so now that I have that, I can zoom in on my workspace a little bit. So I'm going to take this, and I'm going to go back to my Fill and Stroke menu here, and I'm going to turn off the fill by hitting that X. It might disappear. Don't worry, it's still there. Go to Stroke, and I'm going to choose Red 255, and then under Stroke Style, I'm going to go to Point, and I'm going to change it to 1 point. That's going to give us a nice sharp line for our laser to follow. Now the reason I chose red is because the way the Glowforge works, it will give you layers that you can choose different options, different settings for, based on color. So right now, this document that I'm working on has 2 colors, black and red. So I can set one color, red, to be my cut line, and another, black, to be my etch. So that's why I'm using 2 different colors. You have to be careful. The reason I specified red 255 here is because if the Glowforge sees another circle that is red 254, it won't read them both as red. It'll read them as 2 different colors, and so you'll have 2 different layers to choose 2 different options for. So the color itself that you choose doesn't matter. It's just important that your color scheme is consistent. So now a pendant needs like a little hole at top. So you know what? I actually want this to be slightly elongated. So let's actually make this 1.75. Oh, nope, that was width. So let's actually make this 2.25. Let's do 2.1. Yeah, I like that a little better. Okay, and now let's lock that aspect ratio. That's what that does. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make another little circle. And I'm going to make that here. I'm going to change it up here. Let's do 0.2. And then I'm going to lock. And now I'm going to teach you how to align this. If you're enjoying this video, now's a good time to pause to like, ring the bell, and subscribe to our channel, or share this video with your friends on Facebook or other social media accounts. It really helps us to get the word out there about all the cool things that the library can do for you and for everyone else in the community, and we would deeply appreciate it. So thanks! So I'm going to select both of these. So I'm going to click and drag to select both of these, but not my zebra. And I'm going to open my Align and Distribute. Sometimes you'll find that menu down here or along this side. And then I'm just going to choose to the biggest object here, because that one's going to be this round one. And I'm going to select this center on vertical axis. That's going to center it right up. Now I click off of them to select. Now when I click the little circle, that's just the one that's selected. I'm going to use my arrow key to move it up toward the top. You want some space here, because if it's too close, whatever chain or twine, whatever you use, the friction will inevitably, after some time, cause it to wear out and break. So you want to have a little bit of space there. Alright, so now I'm going to select both of these, and I'm going to go to Object and Group. Now I'm going to take my zebra, holding down Shift and Control. I'm going to make him a little smaller by using this corner and pulling it in. And I'm not going to center align him because he's not very centered, so I'm just going to eyeball him. Now I'm going to add some text. So to do that, I'm just going to add the date. And I'm just going to center this up, choose a font that I want. The font you choose doesn't really matter, it's entirely up to you. I'm going to make it a little smaller, and I'm going to use this menu here to move the spacing so it's a little closer. Now I'm going to move this in. Alright, so I think I'm going to make my zebra a little smaller. Raise it up a little. Now remember, I'm going to hold down Shift while I have this clicked, and I'm going to click my pendant. We're just going to center our text, and I'm going to lift it up a little till it looks the way I want. So now I'm going to click on my text, and I'm going to go to Path, Object to Path. This is no longer editable text, it's a path that your laser can follow. I'm going to go to my Fill and Stroke menu with my text selected, go to Fill, Black Color, and I'm going to change this to Green 255. Because remember what I said about color? Now I have 3 different colors, that's going to be 3 different layers for my Glowforge to use. Finally, I'm going to select all of these, go to Object Group, and Path, Object to Path. So that one's done, and I'm going to move it to the side because there's more that we can do. Okay, so that's how you make a more traditional pendant. Now, what if you want to make a pendant that's in the shape of one of your animals? Go ahead and zoom out here so we can see our animals again. Let's duplicate it. So remember, Edit and Duplicate. We're going to pull that off into our workspace. And this time I want to make a squirrel. So we're going to do the same thing we did last time. We're going to select everything, turn off our stroke, select our rectangle and our image. Oh, I'm sorry. First we're going to Path, Object to Path. Now we're going to select our rectangle, hold down Shift and select our animals. Choose Path and Difference. And we're going to repeat, and repeat, and repeat. Okay, so now we've isolated our squirrel. We can zoom back in. And now what we're going to do is we want a cut line. We want an outline. Let's actually, first of all, let's see how big we want him to be. We probably want him to be roughly 2 inches tall. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go over here to our Fill and Stroke menu, and we're going to turn off the fill, turn on stroke, go to stroke style here. We're going to change that to point, and then we're going to call it 1 point. And remember, under our paint, we have our 255 red because we've designated that as our cut line. Again, we're going to add a little circle, change that to 0.15, change that to 0.15, go ahead and lock it, and we're kind of going to eyeball this. I'm going to put that in his tail there. No, I'm not. I'm going to put it in his ear. There we go. I think that looks cute. Okay, and again, let's make sure we have our 1-point stroke style. Now let's add text. Okay, so just like before, select all of that and you can change it to whatever kind of cute little text you want. Entirely up to you. I think for this one I'm going to do papyrus. I think papyrus occasionally looks really cute. Now I'm going to show you how to add text to a path. So you click this, you have your text selected. Choose this guy. Make sure you choose path, object to path. Alright, so text, hold down shift, click your path, text, and we're going to do put on path. And that is going to line our text up really cute right with his tail. It's kind of adorable. It's also kind of big. So what we're going to do now is we are going to adjust it. So we're going to turn this into path. Path, object to path. Adjust as we will here. So you can see I'm kind of doing it on the fly. Trying to make sure that I don't distort it too much, but I also get everything inside. And if I double click like that, I get these rounded arrows that allows me to rotate slightly. Yeah, I think that's going to look really cute. So that is how you make a pendant that has text on it. First of all, it's the pendant in the shape of an animal, not a regular pendant. And secondly, it has text that follows that path. So if we zoom out a little bit, what we're going to do is same thing we did last time. We're going to select all of it and we're going to go to object group. Now it's one and we're going to go to path, object to path. So now when we zoom out, we can select our little guy and we can move him over here so we can work on our next project. So what if you want to do a more complicated shape? Remember how we downloaded these more complicated shapes? This one looks interesting. So what we're going to do for that, we're going to click it, then we're going to choose edit, duplicate. We're going to pull our duplicate copy onto here. We're going to go to path, object to path. First thing we need to do is isolate the one we want to use. I kind of want to use this one. So I'm going to go over here to fill and stroke after I make a rectangle. Under fill, I'm going to do flat color. Stroke, I'm going to turn off. Now I'm going to click on my rectangle, hold down shift, click on my image, and I'm going to go to path and difference. And then I'm just going to repeat that for the rest of it. Now that we have the shape we want, we can go ahead and zoom in. So now let's see how big we want it to be. I think this is probably a little too tall. So let's go with about 2 inches. There we go. That's going to look nice. All right. So this is a question that I get so often is how do you cut out a shape? Well, it's a little complicated. We're going to make a rectangle around our shape. I'm going to go over to fill and stroke and we are going to turn off the fill. We're going to turn on the stroke. Now we're going to go to our bucket tool and we're going to fill that area, but we still have stroke selected. So we're going to turn off the stroke and on the fill. Still a little weird. So if you pull that aside, delete that frame, we're going to go back to our bucket tool, fill that in. I know, it's a little weird. It's fine. I'm going to delete the outside. Now on the inside here, we're going to turn on stroke, turn off fill. So now what we can do is we can change our stroke style here to points, change it to 1. So now we have an outline. Now we're going to align these using our align and distribute. So you can see that they line up. And now what we're going to do is we are actually going to fill in these spaces here. I'm going to zoom way in for this. And again, I'm going to make sure for this I have fill on and stroke off. And then let's actually change the color just to make it a little more visible. So I'm going to do that for all of these little dots because I do want to cut out these dots. And then there are these areas here that didn't get quite filled in. To do that, I'm actually going to choose this path tool and I'm just going to pull this node here. There we go. And I can do that for each of these. I can adjust the path so that it all gets cut out. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to zoom out a little bit and I'm going to go back to my bucket tool and I'm going to do the top there as well. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click my select tool and I'm going to drag away this black part here and I'm just going to delete that. And now I'm going to select all of this and I'm going to go to object and group. and then path and object to path. So now this is a path. So we have a really interesting shape here that I think will make for a neat pendant. So now what if we want to add one of our animals to it? So we're going to zoom out. I think the rhino would look cool. So we're going to duplicate, pull the rhino over, do the same thing we did before. We're going to select both of these and we're going to get a path difference, and then repeat, path difference. Now we're going to zoom way in, path, object to path, hold down Shift and Control, make our little rhino guy fit. And remember, we can also align him so he's nice and centered, although I actually think he looks a little better off to the side just a touch because of his horn. Okay, and now again we're going to go to Object, Group, and Path, Object to Path. Now the reason that path, object to path is important is because our laser needs to follow a path. Okay, so now that that is done, we are going to zoom out and we are going to pull all of our pendants onto the board, and then we're going to delete our templates. We're going to go File, Save, and our next step is to import it into the Glowforge. Alright, so now that you're done in Inkscape, you're going to go back to your internet browser. You're going to type app.glowforge.com, and that's going to take you to the login screen. Glowforge uses a web-based app, so you do have to have an internet connection to use the Glowforge. If you come to the Tech Center, we will go ahead and log you onto our account. If you have your own Glowforge, this is when you log in. So once you log in, this is what it'll look like. It'll have all of your own projects that you've done, not all of ours, obviously. So you're going to hit Create here, and you are going to choose Upload from File. We put ours on the desktop, I believe, and called it Animals, so we're going to upload this. This is kind of what you're going to look like here, so I'm just going to pull that in. Here where it says Unknown, we're actually going to choose medium basswood plywood. No, thick basswood plywood. So now what we're going to do is we're going to choose our options. See how all those colors that I mentioned came out differently? And see how there I must have used a slightly different red like I mentioned? Okay, so for all of our black things that we want to engrave, I'm just going to choose SD graphic. That usually works pretty well. Alright, this I actually want to cut, so I'm just going to choose a proof grade cut. Should be pretty easy, so I'm going to choose cut right here and proof grade. And then here I'm also going to choose proof grade cut. So now that's what I want to etch, that's what I want to cut. I'm going to hit this set focus, so I'm setting my focus kind of in the center of my design. This is actually just focusing the camera. You can see up here the status, what it's doing. Okay, and when it's done, it's going to say ready, and then you're just going to click print. It's going to calculate the movements. It's going to tell you how long it's going to take. And then when you're ready, you just go into the other room or right next to you, wherever your Glowforge is, and you're going to hit the flashing button, and it's going to cut and etch your design. The Lane Community Technology Center is located at 228 Court Street in Hamilton, Ohio. To make an appointment to use our makerspace or equipment, call us at 513-785-2727 or email us at techcenter@lanepl.org.